Hello everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to ChasingCinema.com's official YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Tiranno, and today I'm going to be recapping week 32 of my 365-day challenge, in which I watch a brand new film every single day of the year. And this year is a leap year, so technically it's a 366-day challenge, but nonetheless, I have 7 new films to talk about today. Let's hop right into it. Day 217 of the 365-day challenge, I watched the new comedy starring Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, Michael Cera, Edward Norton, Kristen Wiig, called Sausage Party, the adult animated comedy. And if you've not seen me and Mr. Shoe's review, make sure to click that white eye right up here. A bunch of links will drop down. Click on the Sausage Party review and you'll be able to see how we really feel about this movie. But I will tell you, overall, I did not like it. It was just a film that I found to be really uncreative and really didn't push any boundaries or bring any new, didn't bring anything new to the, Seth Rogen comedy, the raunchiness. Yeah, it did go completely out there as far as raunchiness and being really adult and crazy, but I didn't find myself laughing, and I actually found the movie to be quite convoluted. Again, find out more if you click that white eye and watch our review on Sausage Party. Day 218 of the 365-day movie challenge, I watched the Disney remake of the 1977 live-action animated film Pete's Dragon. Now, this was a movie I was expecting to be really touched by, and again, I found myself quite disappointed, though I will say it was better than Sausage Party. Click on that white eye, a bunch of links will drop down, hit the one for Pete's Dragon, and you can see my movie review for that. Overall, I thought it was alright, but nothing that I think I will remember by the time the year's over. Day 219, I watched the new film War Dogs from Todd Phillips, starring Miles Teller and Jonah Hill. However, my lips are completely sealed about that movie at all. You have to tune in this Friday as my review of War Dogs goes up on this YouTube channel. The best way to never miss a video is to hit that subscribe button. Also, visit ChasingCinema.com. Day 220 of the 365-day challenge, I watched easily one of my favorite documentaries I've seen during this challenge, and if you've been following, you know I've actually watched a good amount of documentaries. But this one, bar none, has to be one of my favorites, and that is called The Fear of 13. Now, The Fear of 13 was just recently put on Netflix. It's probably in the trending area if you've not seen it yet. And I mean, this movie is so engrossing. I could not look away from this movie. And you're saying, well, Jake, what is it? Is it this crazy movie about a crime? This is a movie where one man simply tells its story. It is a one-man show. And for pretty much the entire thing, you're just watching a man in his chair. And for it to be that captivating really says something about him as a person. It is intense and captivating as its subject, Nick Yaris. And it really attests, this film really attests the importance of storytelling as well as the impact of storytelling. I mean, this man can sit you down and just hearing the way that he presents a story, it is so, it is honestly so perfect. I mean, this man is probably one of the better oral storytellers I've seen on any documentary. I mean, he just knows how to tell a story and grab your attention. It will put you on a roller coaster of emotions, and director David Singleton mastered juxtaposing powerful imagery and other recreations as Nick Yaris is retelling his stories. Occasionally we'll get an image or this really beautiful set of imagery and reenactments that just look so well. I mean, it never goes to the point where it's cheesy or unbelievable. It's just little clips here, little images here. For instance, there's one time where he was talking about being heartbroken and he sits in the shower with a chair just to kind of recollect himself, the prisoner who's on death row. And David Singleton recreates that by just doing this beautiful shot of a chair in the shower. I mean, it is really, really great. It's just about knowing how to tell a story. It was so damn good. Check it out, The Fear of 13. Day 221 of the 365-day movie challenge, I watched The King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters. Now, this documentary, which is about the competitive world of arcade gaming, such as the records for King Kong and Pac-Man, mostly focusing on Donkey Kong, is surprisingly fascinating. It throws most of us into a world that we're not aware of. Like, I'm sure, I of course knew that someone had held a Donkey Kong high score, and I'm sure people care about, but I had no idea how intense or how political this world can be. I mean, it's so interesting because this is a true story. This really happened a few years back, but it feels like a movie because of the great characters. And when I say characters, yes, they're real people, but you have this tacky villain, Billy Marshall, who basically feels like Shooter McGavin, the over-the-top villain. And then you have this underdog who's trying to beat Billy's top score on Donkey Kong, and it's this back and forth of him trying to beat that score, and it's funny and it's wildly amusing, and like I said, we discover these politics in the competitive world of gaming and arcade gaming. It makes a topic that most people probably don't find interesting. If I was telling you, watch this documentary, it's about this guy trying to beat a a Donkey Kong high score, you'd go, I don't know if that's for me. But let me tell you, it is compelling. It's like watching Rocky, but with video games. Day 222, I watched another film on Netflix called The Perfect Host. And this movie was from 2010, and director Nick Tomney. And it is a film that you have to go with, right? There are some movies that you just gotta leave your hardened ground to just kind of accept, right? Like, this is a movie that is so ridiculous that if you're like, nah, this wouldn't happen in real life, then you can't enjoy it. There's some movies where reality is important, and there's some other films where you have to be able to kind of let go. We're very forgiving of reality in horror films. Some people aren't. Some people like to complain about characters being dumb, stuff like that. If you're that kind of person, I don't think The Perfect Host is for you, but if you're willing to go with it and have a good time, then maybe it is for you, because the ridiculous of this movie is a lot of fun. It is wacky and at times quite silly, but it does have some really solid moments. And even though it's not very thrilling, those moments are worth seeing. The Perfect Host tackles a really intriguing concept that isn't taken to its full potential, which is kind of a bummer. But the idea alone is entertaining, and how they present it is quite entertaining. The Perfect Host does offer a fantastic performance from its lead, David Hyde Price, who makes his performance alone makes this movie worth watching. And to conclude this week, day 223 of the 365-day movie challenge, I watched the 2000 film from Lynn Ramsey called We Need to Talk About Kevin. We Need to Talk About Kevin is a masterful, masterful film. I seriously regret waiting 5 years to see this movie. I know I wanted to watch it. I'm a fan of Ezra Miller. Tilda Swinton speaks for itself. John C. Reilly is also in the movie. And I was just so excited to see this movie that I've heard things about, but I never got around to it. And on Sunday, I was just going through the Netflix and stumbled upon it. I said, finally. And I clicked it, and I had no idea what I was getting into. First of all, it was nothing like I expected. I was expecting just this movie about a troubled kid who lives in a normal life, but it's really not about Kevin so much. It's more about Kevin's mother, who's played by Tilda Swinton, who is recovering from these traumatic events, and we are just kind of going through this breakdown with her. The story, it makes you feel like your mind is racing, because it's we're thinking about so many ideas that this film is communicating. It offers not only a wonderful script and nearly masterful direction, it also gives us one of Tilda Swinton's hands down best performances as this woman who has gone through the ringer, and she cannot even really blur past from present. And that's how that movie's told. We see a lot of things that are happening in the past that kind of show up in the present, and I think that's what really makes this movie quite entertaining. I mean, it's told in this really confused and scattered timeline, and it's how Tilda Swinton's character sees the world because of how affected she is. Now, I was talking to some people on Twitter who I'm going to mention in a minute to kind of get more in depth, but here's what I was tweeting. Like, this movie is not a film about a monster. Like, We Need to Talk About Kevin. You're watching this and you're just like, wow, this kid is evil. This kid is a demon. But it's not about him. It's about the mother of that monster and how she copes with him being her son. How to love him but equally hate him and envy the fact that he stole her life in that sense. I mean, there's a scene in the very beginning of the movie, or early on in the movie, and she goes, you think I want to be here changing your diapers to a very young Kevin. I'd much rather be in France or something along those lines. And that completely like just sets you up on how this woman's going to deal with this young boy who is set out, assumingly from the time he left the womb, to hurt her. We need to talk about Kevin is an unrelenting horror film that will have you thinking long after it's over. Now, when it did conclude, I was kind of frustrated because I wanted to know more about Kevin. I wanted to understand more about why he did what he did and why he hated his mother so much. And it clicked. Because evil exists. At least that's what this filmmaker was trying to say. Like, my takeaway from this movie, and I had a conversation with, I'll pull up his name in a second because he actually asked me about this. It's simply that he was evil. He wasn't a good person. And though we never expect it to happen, that person could be related to us. It could be our husband, it could be our wife, which is seen to be more common, but it's very scary, the idea that the person you give birth to, the person you are the mother of, can be such a heinous human being. Now, I think the film goes in a much deeper thought than just that, but overall, I think that's why we didn't need to know so much about Kevin. Kevin wasn't... Okay, I'm going to spoil some stuff right now, so if you don't want to know, cut me off. Kevin, eventually, at the age of... Well, near the age of 16, does a mass killing at his school. Or that we could assume is a mass killing, but now with a gun with a bow and arrow. And he kills and injures multiple students. And the movie's about Tilda Swinton dealing with all of that. Kevin also kills his father and his younger sister. And he's not bullied at school. At least we're not told, but we have to assume that he's not bullied or tortured at school. There is an incident between Twilda and him, but you don't feel that it's because of abuse or misunderstanding. It's because this child was just a vile human being. Now, the movie doesn't explore psychological issues, even though I'm assuming if we set ourselves back in kind of a more reality, it is psychological. But like I said, there's that one scene where Tilda Swinton finally has enough of him when he's younger after he soils himself and she throws him and he breaks his arm. But Kevin is not affected by that. Kevin smiles, not really smiles, but he looks at her and he kind of realizes that this is a win in his quarter because he will use this in the future to blackmail his mom. Now you're probably wondering, like, maybe Jake, you're missing some things. Like, if you've not seen the movie at least, you're like, why is this kid just evil? Like, what kind of answer is that? I don't think it means like devil evil, even though this kid looks like the devil could be in him at times when he's looking at his mother. There's this horrible scene where she just walks into the bathroom and he's masturbating in the mirror and he looks at her and he just stares at her as he continues masturbating, and it's just like, oh, what a vile human being. And I think that is what they wanted to come across. They didn't want us to think that, oh, he was bullied and he went nuts, or oh, he was abused and he came back for revenge. You didn't want to do that. This is this character. And at the same time, I think in a lot of senses, it's not so much his stories as much as Tilda Swinton's. They don't want us to know. They just want us to know how she reacted. What could she have done differently? We got to enter her psyche, and the fact that now that her son has completed the most heinous crime, murder, killing multiple students, and that she'll never be left alone. She's hit on the street, someone's ruining her groceries, someone throws paint at her house. She lives in this misery because of him. And in that sense, Kevin wins. And that's what's the most terrifying thing about this movie. Yes, Kevin is in jail. And there are moments where Kevin shows some humanity. But in the battle of him wanting to torment his mother by killing her husband, her second child, and all these other people, he has won in making his mom completely lose her mind. Well, not completely lose her mind, but completely break down and hurt forever. And there was this, there's these moments where she still goes to visit him, and they don't talk, they don't discuss anything, and it just shows you that she feels responsible for this monster still. She couldn't, what makes her so interesting is you think that eventually Tilda's going to snap and hurt him, which she does. She breaks his arm by throwing him. But you think she's going to do more, and she never does. And after that point, when you think she has a reason to leave him be and forget all about him, she still goes and sees him. She still subjects herself to that room to look him in the face and hug him. And it's a really, really masterful told story. I think it's a movie that's worth watching again. I think there's a lot of different interpretations of it. But, man, did I really, really like this movie. Like I said, I regret not watching it sooner. I think there's so much to interpret, and there's so much to get you thinking. That's what makes a movie great. And that and The Fear of 13 are going to be my favorite movies of the week. Make sure to go watch both of them. Both from our Netflix. So if you have Netflix, you're covered. We need to talk about Kevin, which, isn't a traditional horror, guys. I want you to know that's a very slow-paced movie that's not told in a specific order. And then The Fear of 13, which is very just simply a man telling you a story. Both are phenomenal. Both are great. Both have to be some of my favorites I've seen in this challenge so far. That's going to wrap it up for this week, guys. Until next week. Next week, I'm going to do another week of randomness. And then, on August 22nd, that Monday, a week from today, I'm going to do Kevin Week. And I'll tell you guys all more about that next week, but it's going to be fun. A lot of cheesy movies from the 80s and sometimes even earlier than the 80s we're going to be watching, so make sure to tune into that. Also, make sure to never miss a video by hitting that subscribe button below. If you've enjoyed this video, also make sure to give me a thumbs up. Make sure to click that white eye to see all the reviews that I talked about earlier, as well as the upcoming stuff that we have going on. Make sure to tune in this Friday as I review War Dogs and the other releases that are coming out this week. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jacob Tiranno, and please continue chasing cinema.